3 seconds. That is all he had before the mask sealed forever.
3 seconds of open air on a burning planet where everything died.
Everything he had ever loved had just died by his own hand.
Before the respirator locked, and the voice that was no longer his.
He saw something. Not the Emperor, not the surgery table.
He saw a face. The same face he had been trying to save.
And it was already gone. What he saw in that moment. What he chose to do with it for 23 years is not in any record. But it is the only thing that explains everything that comes after.
To understand what Darth Vader saw, you must understand what he was before.
Not the myth, not the general, not the chosen one, the man.
A man who dreamed, who slept badly, who woke in darkness.
The Order's 3 failures. Who woke reaching for someone who was not there.
The Jedi Order gave him power and took everything that made power bearable.
They told him attachment was weakness. They trained him to cut what he loved. He had to learn the hidden truth about what attachment meant.
The way you cut a diseased branch so the tree survives. He cut.
And the trias in the ras, the gull surprise. And the tree died anyway. On Mustafar, in the heat and the ash, the rivers of molten rock below. 2 men who had once been brothers stood facing each other.
He had already crossed the line that cannot be uncrossed. What remained was not a choice between good and evil. What remained was a simpler, darker arithmetic. He had given everything.
The Sith offered him a different equation. Power in exchange for service.
Survival in exchange for obedience. A mask in exchange for a face.
A face that had already failed him. But the mask did not erase what was underneath. It sealed it. And what was sealed inside that black armor for 23 years was not rage. Rage burns out. What was inside was more dangerous. It was a question he asked every single day in the silence. In the silence beneath the respirator, between one mechanical breath and the next.
A question with only one answer. And he already knew the answer.
That is what made it unbearable. The question was not why. He knew why. The question was, what did she see in the last moment before the light went out?
Not what she said, what she saw. On the forest moon at dusk, beneath ancient trees and
The official account was that she saw good in him. She saw good in him still.
After everything. After he had put his hands around her throat on that platform.
She looked at him and still saw something worth saving.
He did not believe it. He could not afford to believe it.
Because if she was right, Hef, If there was something worth saving Heft, every year was a choice.
Then every year, inside the armor, was a choice, not an inevitability.
A choice he made again, every morning, when the respirators cycled.
And the darkness of the mask pressed against his face, and the Empire needed something destroyed. If she was right, then Darth Vader was not what the armor had made him.
With full knowledge of what he was choosing.
That is the version of events that the Empire could never allow to be spoken.
Because a villain created by tragedy is a warning. But a man who chooses darkness
Daily, knowingly, while carrying inside him the memory of a face.
that still believed in him king, that is not a warning. That is a mirror.
And the Empire was built for people who did not want mirrors.
There is a detail that appears in no official account.
In the years after Mustafar, Darth Vader was assigned to the construction of the Teeth Star,
A project of absolute power. A weapon so large it functioned as a planet.
He oversaw the engineering specifications. He reviewed the personnel.
He walked the corridors of that station with the slow, deliberate authority of something that had long ago stopped being human. And on every inspection, in every corridor, he stopped at the same intersection. Every time.
A viewport, a small one, facing in the direction of a system that no longer mattered.
A system with a twin sun. A desert planet.
A place where a boy had once stood at the edge of a moisture farm and felt his life about to begin.
And looked at the horizon and felt that his life was about to begin.
He stopped there because it was the only place that reminded him of before.
Before the Sith. Before the mask. Before the choice.
And standing there, in the dark, with the respirator cycling and the stars fixed.
He did not grieve. He observed. The way you observe a photograph of someone gone.
Not with feeling. With the discipline of a man who has decided feeling is too costly.
And then he walked away. Every time. Until the day he did not.
What Darth Vader saw after Mustafar was not redemption. Not yet.
Redemption came later. In a different darkness. On a different station.
When a boy with the same eyes stood in front of him and refused to stop believing.
The same thing Padme had believed. That there was something worth saving. The mask was what he wore while he decided. Every day, for 23 years. Whether to be Anakin Skywalker again. And every day he chose not to. Until one day he did not choose.
Until one day, the Force moved through him, and the question finally had its answer.
The question he had carried, since Mustafar finally received its answer. The answer he had always known was there. She was right. There was something worth saving. It just took 23 years of darkness and a son who would not give up. Open loop Parium, it just took 23 years. To bring it back to the surface. It is time now. I will see this through.
Some things survive the armor. That is what he saw.
Identity threat. That is what he had always known.
The choice was made on a burning planet. And it was unmade on one just as cold.
Between those two moments was one man carrying one question through 23 years. The question every person in darkness eventually faces. Who did I choose to be?
Darth Vader carried the answer. He had always carried it. He just refused to use it.
Until a son refused to give up on him. That refusal changed everything.
The Force does not forget what it recognized. It waits.
The mask came off, and what was underneath was exactly what she had said was there.
Every choice he made for 23 years is recorded somewhere.
What he saw after Mustafar guided every step, even the steps toward darkness.
The boy who watched twin suns set on a desert world defend. He was never gone.
He was just waiting for someone who would not stop reaching for him. What survives a man is not his armor. What survives is what he chose when no one watched. You already know this story. You have always known it.
It is the story of a question that could not be killed, even by 23 years of silence.
Some things survive the armor. You know which things. The Force told you already.
That is what he saw after Mustafar, and that is what saved everything in the end.
A face. He saw a face, and it never left him.